On today's show, I'd like to welcome Mattia Pironti, who is a singer, songwriter. He's got a new single out called Don't Stand a Chance. We're going to talk about that and his upcoming album. So first, let's just welcome to the show, Mattia.
Hello.
Hey, we were just talking earlier how, I want to make sure I pronounce everyone's name correctly. So, if we're getting a little more Anglo, I think it's how I pronounce it. But you were saying, for your Italian side, how did you pronounce your name?
So in Italian, it's pronounced Mattia Pironti, but in English, I just say Mattia Pironti.
Well, what I like about you coming from Montreal is that you guys have a thriving Italian community there too, and we were talking about a little bit earlier. There's always, where there's an Italian community, there's a wealth of music. So, do you have a lot of overlap with that community in Montreal?
Actually, no, because I grew up actually with a lot of friends from all over the place, and I didn't grow up in there's a neighborhood called the Little Italy, and I didn't grow up there. So actually, my friends are from like all around the world, and all the schools that I went to had a lot of diversity, so I'm not really specific to like one kind of community. I've always been the friend with everyone. Actually in high school, it's funny, but we had like little awards at the end of the year, and I used to win friend of everybody. So I guess I always kind of like to mingle with everyone.
Well, I think that's good if you're in showbiz, that you can make friends with everyone, because you need a lot of friends to make it in this biz.
For sure. I think in any business, especially in the arts, it's like half about work and talent, and the other half, I would say, it's networking. So, of course, that helps to be comfortable with people.
Well, I want to talk about your journey leading up to your new single, Don't Stand a Chance, and your upcoming album.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really interesting where your travel has taken you. You obviously, you graduated from Berklee College of Music with a degree in songwriting. You made it to The Voice in Israel. But what I really like is that you actually did some busking in Italy, like in Rome and a couple other cities there.
Yeah.
So what did you learn from, putting your little coin box on the sidewalk, set up your guitar? What's the biggest lesson when you're out there busking and just playing live for people on the streets?
It's what I love about busking is that it's all about connecting with people. And I love also that there's no stage. You're on the same level as them. You're not on a platform. You're not on a pedestal. You're just with them, and it really feels like, and actually, like, from what I've learned from busking, because I busked for 6 months, I toured actually all over Italy, and I went to the biggest cities like Florence, Rome, Venice, and the biggest joy that I got from it was just connecting from people. And some nights I could gather crowds of like 500 people, and we would all sing like Hey Jude together, or songs from Ed Sheeran and Jason Mraz and Bruno Mars, and at the end. Actually, because I didn't know it was actually a really well-paid job in Italy, if like you're well organized and have CDs and like really like promote yourself. So that was amazing too, that I was able to live from it. But the most amazing part was just how I ended up connecting with people, and also the most amazing part was that for 6 months I didn't have to pay one night like for accommodation. Every single night of my trip, I was hosted by people I met from the streets.
That's amazing. Talk about, singing for your supper and just being extended all that hospitality.
Yeah. So that was actually really cool, and I got to meet so many people that are like one of them that I met there was also a busker. He was a break dancer, and we ended up doing like a lot of shows together. He would break dance and I would sing. And he's like one of my best friends now, and he's coming to Montreal. I've been going to Italy to see him, and so it's like I'm really blessed that I've met some amazing people and longtime friends also from busking. And I'd love to do it again. Actually, sorry.
Oh, no, I was going to say I found a couple of YouTube videos of you busking, and I was really taken by a couple that you did with a violin player named Victor Angelov.
Yeah, he's. It's funny you saw that because he's the most amazing busker I've met during my trip. He used to play in the first orchestra of Poland.
One thing I was really struck by your busking is one of the songs you sang, and I'm going to give you a little quiz and see if you can guess what it is. But it was one written by one of the premier, if not, the most well-known singer-songwriters from Canada.
Yeah, Leonard Cohen. Actually, it's really funny because his house is like one street away from where I grew up. I never actually met him, but he's from the same neighborhood I'm from. So yeah. Actually, Hallelujah would be my favorite song to bust because it was just. I think it's more than a song. It's like, I think it's like spiritual. It's like an experience almost, that song. So every time I sing it, that's when I got the most people who would sing along. The most special things happen. Like, I got a few weddings proposal while I was singing, and a lot of them happened while I was singing Hallelujah. Like, just the vibe that I would get when everybody, like, I would ask everybody to sing the chorus with me, and when you have 500 people singing with you Hallelujah and in front of the Colosseum, it's pretty special. So yeah, it's I don't know. I sang it so many times that it's, and every time it was like my favorite also part of my own show. Just singing it, I felt like I would just close my eyes and I would go somewhere else too.
Well, that's pretty impressive if the power of your singing will get someone to propose marriage to you.
Yeah, that's really, it's beautiful to have someone, like, I felt very grateful to have just people wanting to, propose to their life partners while I was singing. It's really humbling. So every time I would say, of course, yes. And yeah, it was very good, really nice memories that I have.
Oh, very nice. So they were proposing to each other, and they weren't all proposing to you.
No, not to me.
Well, speaking of, songwriting and great songs, it sounds like that's one thing that you've really committed yourself to, is just the craft of songwriting. And I think one interesting part of your bio is you're not only on The Voice of Israel, but you're in the audition process and moving along to get on The Voice of Quebec. But in the middle of that, something happened. You got accepted to Berklee College of Music.
Yeah, and then I got a scholarship, because you get accepted first, and then 2 weeks later they tell you if you get a scholarship or not. So I got a scholarship, and then I just got in The Voice of Quebec, and they were basically telling me, like in Israel, they told me the same thing. You have to commit if you want to be in The Voice. In terms of you have to be here physically for the next 6 months. And the show was starting in December, and I got accepted to start Berklee in January. So I had to make a choice, and since I had already done The Voice, I decided to go to Berklee. And I'm really happy I did, because my whole team now that I do music with is from Berklee. And almost my best friends now, I've met them all there. So I'm really happy that I went to Berklee.
Well, see, that's pretty daring, because a lot of people, everything is so media savvy. They would think, wow, why would you give up the chance to be on this big TV show and be discovered as the next big star? How could you give that up?
I mean, I think The Voice, to be honest with you, it's a very momentary fame. You're famous for that year, and then the next year there's the next show, and then they start forgetting about you, and a couple of years later nobody remembers you. And honestly, the contracts from The Voice were not that appealing to me, because you don't get to write your own songs at the end. You have people writing for you. You have a whole team doing everything for you. And I want to be an artist. I don't want to be just a singer singing somebody else's songs. And yeah, I think just the chance that I had to go to Berklee to learn also about music, because I learned by myself just playing guitar and singing, and to have lessons learning how to read and write and to communicate basically the music language with other people. For me, that was more appealing than, having a moment of fame and just and then what? Then you still have to go out there and write your songs and learn about music. So I was just I'll just skip that and get right into it.
Well, do you think you can teach someone songwriting, or to a certain
Of
degree,
course.
do you already have to have that talent in you to begin with?
I think you have to have the willingness and the desire to start somewhere. But even like people like Ed Sheeran, like he shows videos of himself singing when he was 13, and he left them on YouTube to show people that with like tons of work and practice, you can actually like become a good singer and songwriter. And you know, I mean, he's someone that I really look up to, and as a songwriter and a performer and a person actually. And yeah, I think it's just about putting the 10,000 hours down and really committing to your passion. And I don't think you have to be born as a Mozart to do music. I think you just have to want to do it.
Well, on your single, Don't Stand a Chance, which you also have a great video to, you've got a lyric video. You really cover all your bases. I like that. But on your bio, oh, you bet. And you're talking about, you know, the writing of it, Don't Stand a Chance, and it seems like you really dive into the personal, like you're very upfront that, you know, this song is about the end of a relationship that you did not want to end.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I didn't want it to end, but it's just that my ex, she moved away to Vancouver, and it was just hard to say goodbye that way and not like have the chance to basically work it out. And she just wanted to like cut off and go and not have to go through that process of trying to, you know, I don't know, figure things out or figure how we could work, I guess, from distance. It was just like, it's over. I don't want to talk to you again. Bye. And it felt just very abrupt to me. And I just felt I didn't have a chance to even like to try to work it out, you know. It was just like, but at the same time, she had gone through something very traumatic, and like someone close in her family had passed away, and she's from Vancouver, so you know, she needed to ground herself again and go back home to feel grounded and close to her mother. So at the same time, I thought it was great that she was doing that move. I just was sad that we didn't have a chance to stay in touch, and even today we don't talk anymore, and she doesn't want to. And I found that part very hard.
Do you think she's heard the song?
Actually, I sent it to her. It was probably a really bad idea. And she told me, I don't know if she listened, but she just replied like, hey, I already asked you, please do not get in touch with me. Like, you know, it's over between us, you know, blah, blah. So I don't know if she heard it, but I did send it to her, which was probably a really bad idea.
Well, you tried, so...
Yeah.
Hey. Well, what I'm wondering from a songwriting point of view, do you find that the more personal you get, that the better the songwriting gets?
For sure. I think it doesn't necessarily have to be about you, but like I think just the more honest you are about your writing, I think the more it come across, like when people hear it. And I'm quite happy actually about Don't Stand a Chance, because when I hear it, like I can feel my emotions and I can feel the honesty, and I know I've gone through that story, and just listening to it feels genuine and honest, and that's what I'm looking for when I'm writing, more than like being catchy and being a top 40 song and all of that. Like it's more about, you know, just speaking from the heart, and hopefully that other people will feel it too, because the songs I listen to, they really come and touch me, and I try to do the same when I write or when I perform. That's my main goal.
Well, as a performer, what would you call your genre? Are you a pop singer? You know, do you do more ballads? How would you describe that?
I would say pop, but for sure pop is very broad these days, and I think I mix a lot of things, and I think there's a folky side to me. And of course, like I love ballads, but I also like upbeat songs. And I think, you know, I would say folky pop. I guess singer-songwriter, I guess is a good way to describe it.
So you basically want to record primarily music that you've written.
Yeah, or at least that I have, like I love co-writing. Like my whole album actually I co-wrote with other people. And I really like co-writing because I love to get other people's point of view, and especially if they're like close friends, which I try to just write with like really close friend of mine. I feel we can really be honest about the writing and really authentic, and that's mainly what I'm looking for when I'm writing. But I love, I wouldn't see myself singing a song that I'm not part of the writing process. That would feel kind of awkward to me. But that being said, I'll sing a lot of covers because I've busked so much that, I know like hundreds of covers. So at the same time, it does feel good to sing covers. So I don't know. If it happens one day, we'll see. But for now, I have the chance to be part of my own writing, so I like to do it.
Well, what singers or bands mostly influenced you?
I think Coldplay, as a lot of young people out there, was definitely one of the bands that I really started listening to everything they did, and I love their music and their range of music, like how many styles they did and how they grew throughout their albums as a band. And Coldplay for sure is up there. The Beatles, of course, as a kid, Cat Stevens, Bee Gees, and today, I really love singer-songwriters. I love The Passenger, Ed Sheeran. Mostly it's first album. I really, really like his first album. James Bay also. James Bay is a huge one. I really, really like James Bay.
Nice. Well, your upcoming album is called Mirror, and leading up to it, you're going to release several more singles. One is Broken Hearted in January. One's called Courage to Love. Next month, you have another single. What's that one going to be called?
It's called like my album. It's called Mirror. That's the next one coming out November 15th.
Nice. So, and you've already made music videos for all of those?
Yes, and lyric videos.
Well, I'm curious about your process because your first video from the album, Don't Stand a Chance, it's black and white. It's very dramatic. The lighting is dramatic. And you're in a room with all these shadows, and there's a woman in other parts. Who directed these, and how did you get your concept for that?
Actually, I've been working because my team is actually in Mexico, so I did all the recording of my album and the shooting of the music video in Mexico, in a beautiful city called Coyoacán, which is actually one of my favorite cities in the world now. It's just so colorful, and Frida Kahlo is from there, so that's, I guess, where all the colors also come from. But so I was in Mexico, and through my production team that I've met in Berkeley, because they moved back to Mexico after Berkeley. My producer was called Pepe Portilla. And then Pepe introduced me to this filmmaker, and we really got along, and then we started working on the ideas for all the singles, and I was really fortunate to be able to shoot 4 music videos with him. Spent actually 3 months in the last 6 months in Mexico working on the album and the music videos and everything. And actually, I already also recorded an EP that's coming out after the album. So I also have that I did in Mexico.
Nice. Well, are you going to tour to support the album?
Yeah, of course. That's the plan. So I have actually a big team now. I have a manager and a social media manager and PR and, all of that. And we are looking currently to hopefully get a booking agent soon. And the goal is then to start touring and start, playing those songs live. But it's my first album and it's the first song. And usually, booking agents like to have an album out or an EP out or something that they, can then pitch. So the album is just coming out in February. I hope to find a booking agent before that, but hopefully before that or soon after that to find one and then hopefully start touring. That's the dream.
Well, how has Canadian radio responded to you so far?
Actually, I got one single that I released before my album. It was just a one song, and it got played in the top radio in Montreal for English side, because we have Montreal is French and English, so the top English radio is called The Beat, and that song was on rotation for 9 months. And probably for the third single in January, Broken Hearted, which even though the name sounds sad, it's a upbeat song. So for that one, we might try to do a national radio tracking so it gets hopefully played like all across Canada. And that will be the first time I tried that. So yeah.
First time, because I was talking to someone the other day. It's so great how Canada supports Canadian artists on the radio there.
Yes, like 70% has to be from Canadian content. So I'm really lucky for that, and I of course want to use that as my advantage. So actually, I might work with the brother of Nelly Furtado. It's called Oscar Furtado, and he's a radio tracker, and I've heard he's quite good. So hopefully, I'll make it happen.
Another interesting connection you have, you mentioned when you were in Israel, you actually met the 1978 Eurovision winner, Izar Cohen. Yeah. How did that all happen?
That was actually really funny. I was with a friend and a coffee, and we were just like having something to eat, and he tells me like, "Oh, look who's there! It's Izar Cohen," and I'm like, "Who's Izar Cohen?" And he's like, "Man, you don't know? He's like a national hero here. He won Eurovision in 1978." And I had just been like accepted into the Voice of Israel. So I was like, I'll go ask him a few tips. Like, I'll go see if he can give me a few tips. You know, he won a whole TV show, so maybe like I can learn from him a few things. I'll see like if he wants to have a chat. So I got up, I went to introduce myself, and I told him I was going to be in the Voice, and I said I was wondering if I could get a few tips from you or if we could talk. And he was really nice. He gave me his number. He said, "Of course, let's have a chat, you know, come to my house, we'll talk about it." So then I went to his house, and we became like great friends, and he became my first vocal teacher. I had never had vocal lessons before that. And he's actually like I went to Berkeley, and I had 4 vocal teachers there, but it was all like, you know, very academic, and we had to learn songs for exams and stuff. He just wanted me to sing better, and it wasn't for an exam, you know, it was for real. And I really felt I grew so much as a singer with him. Like my voice before and after the few months I got to work with him completely changed. And I mean, I'm nowhere close to him, and I will never be because he's amazing. But yeah, I learned so much from him. And the thing also, I got a lot from him to learn, and that he would always tell me, and that's, I think, a lot that I use now, is that when I would sing, he would put his arms out, and he would call it the goosebump test. So it was like, let's see, like starting at my hand all the way to my elbow, like how far you can make the goosebumps go. So I would basically have to try to sing in front of him and try to make him feel something. And that was, he said, our most important job as singers was to transmit an emotion, because he said we might sing in a language that other people might not understand, or, you know, be in front of an audience that just doesn't know what you're talking about. But if you can make them feel something, they'll remember the performance, and you can give them something that they can keep forever. And I thought that was so beautiful, and that was exactly what I wanted to do. So that's what I try to do, at least every time I sing.
That's pretty amazing. A chance meeting and then this just amazing advice.
Yeah, and he was more than a teacher. Like I would go for the lessons, you know, and we would like end up staying like 3-4 hours, and we would do like an hour lesson, but he would tell me about his life. You know, he got to tour with ABBA, and he got the same teacher as Judy Garland, and he would tell me all his amazing life stories, how he traveled the world and everything. And it was just like a blessing being in his presence. You know, he was just so knowledgeable and such a nice person.
Well, Eurovision, you know, so popular in Europe, but in the past few years it's becoming much better known in North America, probably through YouTube. But what I'm wondering, would you ever consider representing a European country at Eurovision?
I could maybe represent Italy because I have the Italian passport. But no, to be honest, no. I don't want to go on, like I've already been on 2 TV shows, and I know also people who've been, and that's not really what I'm looking for right now. Like I'm happy I had the experience, and now I want to focus on my music and writing music.
Well, we're going to wrap up in a few minutes here, but before we do,
sure.
I want to make sure that people know how to find you online. So what's your website? Where can people buy your music? Where can they see your videos?
So it's all under Mattia Pironti, and Mattia is Mattia, and then Pironti is Pironti, and it's all on all the streaming platforms. You can go on YouTube. I have a Facebook page, an Instagram page, and a website under mattiapironti.com. So it's basically all there.
I encourage people to start off with the videos because they're just great to watch and hear your music at the same time. But what I want to wrap up with is, you mentioned collaboration, working with other writers, going to Mexico. So if you had your dream, who would you like to collaborate with on future albums? And not just singers, but, your favorite producers and people like that.
I mean, that's really a dream. But, I'd love to work with Ed Sheeran for writing songs. I think he's probably the best out there, at least to my eyes, for writing all kind of music. So just to learn from him, that'd be amazing. And then production-wise, I think if I could have like a kind of a Coldplay production on one of my songs, that would be insane.
Mm-hmm. Well, then here's a little bonus question. If you could open for any band and tour with them, who would be your dream band or performer to open with, share their audience with, and just kind of maybe even mentor you a little bit?
I think Ed Sheeran, for sure. Ed Sheeran or James Bay, but more Ed Sheeran, I would say, for sure.
So what do you like most about Ed Sheeran? Is it his lyrics, his music, his singing? Well, what's so great about Ed Sheeran to you?
His perseverance and his dedication to his art. He started out busking like me, and he just never stopped, and he kept trying. He was 4 years in the streets in London, doing as many shows as he could. He even got like a world record for doing like the most shows in a year that he got, that he beat from James Morrison, actually, from Canada. And he would just do like open mics and whatever he could. He just never stopped. And then he moved to LA to try to do the same thing because he didn't have the break he wanted. And then in LA he was singing in an open mic, and the producer of Jamie Foxx saw him, and then he got to meet Jamie Foxx, and I think his career kind of just started up from there afterwards, But like for me, how I see him also is that all those years he was preparing and he was practicing, kind of like the Beatles. They went to Germany for a year before getting back to England and getting noticed by this Jewish guy who owned a store where he was selling vinyls. And it's kind of the same story. It's just like that preparation time of just like practicing your art so much that I think when you get so good at it and you get to those 10,000 hours, it's like your talent is just undeniable. It's like you cannot not be recognized because you're just so good at what you do. So that's what I really, really admire about Ed Sheeran. Just his perseverance, that he didn't stop, his willingness to like, he would sleep at he would do shows and he would tell people, hey guys, I have nowhere to sleep tonight. If someone from the audience could host me tonight, that would be great. Just his willingness to go in the unknown and just like to really go for it. I think that's really beautiful. And look where he's at now. He's the biggest artist in the world, doing the biggest stadiums in the world. So it's like, wow, it's really admirable.
Well, Mattia, I think you're on your way for your own success. So I've really enjoyed talking to you, and I really just predict great things for the Mirror album when it comes out.
Thank you so much. Same. It was really nice talking to you, and thanks for taking the time to do this interview with me.